And I'm happy to help, Emma, if you want. Macart, I do see your hand raised. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. So I'm going to give, Emma, would you want to give him a permission to speak, please?
Yes, I'll do that now. Hold on. Suki, I don't have a timer. Do you have a timer on your end?
Sure, I'll display the timer.
Thank you.
Is now the best time for public comment?
Go ahead.
Yes, please.
Hi, thanks everyone. My name is Matt Hart, speaking tonight as a community member to council members, supervisor, their staff, just about the El Camino Real corridor, how it's kind of similar to the Middlefield corridor in its pedestrian improvements and the process that takes. Many of you championed the improvements that are currently under construction on Middlefield Road right now. And I just wanted to bring light to the fact that Caltrans, the state of California, has deemed on El Camino, now talking about between kind of the Siena Youth Center and Sequoia High School, that stretch of El Camino has been deemed by the state a high collision corridor for the high rate of accidents and the lack of safety of all road users. And just here tonight, I'm part of a community group of teachers, students, local residents along that corridor, both in North Fair Oaks and Redwood City, trying to build support, particularly not for the supervisor's office or for this council, but for the Redwood City Council, which has jurisdiction over most of that road, to implement pedestrian improvement safety measures along that corridor. We have 3,500 students who attend the Sequoia area schools every day in the county's most dense consolidation of affordable housing. And I believe I sent all council members an email, but we're trying to put together a letter to council before their priorities meeting in a couple weeks. And I would welcome any of you to email me back. Would love to have a member of the North Oaks Community Council as a co-signer of that letter. But I'm a very big fan of all the work y'all are doing. And if not, thank you for your time and leadership to the community.
Thank you very much, Mac. Is there any other public comment tonight?
Mr. Chair, I don't see any other hands raised in the attendee side. So I think that's the end of public comment.
Okay, thanks very much, Suki. Next item on the agenda is the AB 361 resolution that we have to renew. Tim, can you give us an overview on that? I understand that we do have to take a vote as it does require a monthly update.
That's right. In order to continue to conduct meetings by remote teleconference, such as the Zoom platform, it's a requirement that the agency adopt a resolution making certain factual findings about the safety of meeting in person. And so we presented a form AB 361 resolution that was posted along with the public agenda. Some of you may have actually gotten an advanced copy of the agenda that didn't include this item, but it is necessary for us to make the adoption at least once every 30 days or at the beginning of the first meeting if more than 30 days has passed since the last such adoption, which in this case it has. So we recommend adoption of the AB 361 resolution to allow the meeting to proceed in an online forum.
So I can make a motion that we adopt the AB 361 resolution so that we can continue to meet online. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Is there any discussion among council members?
Point of clarification, please. Tim, you might be able to clarify this. The chair cannot make the motion. He can propose that someone make the motion or entertain it, but so that's my understanding.
No, there actually isn't a law or rule that precludes the chair from making a motion, although typically the chair will invite a motion, but it doesn't prevent someone from making it.
Okay, so if that's the case, we've historically and typically do not do that. If that's something that a new procedure that the council wants to take, then we need to have a discussion about that after Because if that's going to be the practice, it's changing the way it's been. So, which is fine if people want to do it that way, but it just has not been the practice. So I will say no more and let this motion go through.
Okay, I believe we have a motion and a second, which calls for a roll call. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, it looks like committee member Whitney has something to say as well. His hand is up.
Okay. Blair, go ahead.
I raised my hand initially to make the motion before you did. And it's just, if you want a substitute motion, I'll make the motion. If you want to just vote on this, that's fine too. And my experience is that if a chair of a meeting wants to start making motions or to speak for or against, they pass the gavel to the vice chair and they don't get the gavel back until after that matter is voted on. It's more of like a politeness thing and good government practices, but it's not like a law. But I'm just providing context to Linda's remarks.
Okay, my mistake and won't happen again. I'm assuming, Tim, that we can go ahead and do a roll call against the motion in the second. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, let's proceed.
I'm
proceed
happy
with
to
that
take
then.
the roll motion. Juan Carlos Parada,
Yes.
Beatriz Seria. Beatrice is absent. Linda Lopez,
Yes.
Blair Whitney,
Aye.
Jennifer Ruiz,
Yes.
Joni Gillespie. Joni Gillespie is absent, I believe. Everardo Rodriguez,
Yes.
okay, Youth Council Member Francita,
Aye.
thank you. And then Chair Brooke Esser.
Yes.
Motion passes with two members being absent.
Okay, thank you very much, Suki. Next item on the agenda is a beginning of our discussion on the.
Through the chair, this is Emma.
Yes, yes,
Did
Emma.
we, Suki, I'm just sorry. I just wanted to confirm. Did we get Gabriella Ike as in that motion?
Oh, sure. And Gabriella Aki for that motion that we just made.
Yeah, yes.
Sure. And once again, the motion passes with two regular members being absent.
Okay, thank you very much, Suki. The core of our meeting this evening is going to be the North Fair Oaks Community Council Planning Workshop. And I thought it would be helpful to kind of spend a few minutes to establish a process for tonight and to identify our goals for the evening. Obviously, it's important that we begin each year with a sense of the issues that we want to focus on, while also keeping in mind the responsibilities that we have as representatives of our community according to our council charter. Now, the work that we do tonight should in no way limit the issues that we'll work on in 2022, excuse me. But it should establish some guidelines as far as what we consider to be priorities for the year. So really our goal ought to be to come away from the session with some ideas about the issues, the areas that we're going to focus on in 2022. We need input from the county, of course, and I'd like to thank Supervisor Slocum in advance for attending and sharing his ideas, as well as input from members of the council and the community. This really is an opportunity to share ideas and develop a vision for 2022. What a successful 2022 looks like for the North Fair Oaks Community Council. And when I was thinking of how to structure the session, a couple of thoughts came to mind. You know, at the end of the day, our responsibility is to make recommendations to the San Mateo County Board of Supervisors, and we do that in two ways. The first are kind of mandated recommendations or things that we are responsible for as a result of our charter. Things like planning and building, items like residential parking variances, as well as public works input on aspects of the Middlefield Road project. Bench design is a recent example of that. We also make recommendations with regard to pending board actions. A couple that came up last year with a firework ordinance, as well as restrictions on gun shops, that sort of thing. In a sense, those kind of reflect what I consider to be a reactive role of the council, but we've also got a proactive role. And that is, we're responsible for identifying issues and projects that can benefit our community and presenting those to the board. And we do this by researching and studying those issues in study sessions, and then framing those issues for discussion and recommendation at our regular sessions. So a couple of conclusions from this. First of all, our planning focus ought to be designed around our regular monthly meetings. And I think we're all aware that we only have so much time in those meetings. We need to be mindful of that. We need to establish an annual plan that can be implemented over the course of a 2-hour regular monthly meeting. Second, we need to focus on actionable issues. In other words, identifying the key issues that we want to work on in 2022, particularly with regard to study sessions, with a goal of providing recommendations to the Board of Supervisors that'll benefit the community in 2022 and support our constituents. And to that end, I created a deck that I'd like to work from tonight, and I think will help us kind of collect our thoughts. And if I can, I'm going to go ahead and bring that up in the room. Let me see if I can do this quickly. There we go. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Yes.
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 Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think this will be pretty familiar to people. What I've basically done is just kind of laid out a typical agenda template, if you will, for our monthly regular meetings. And this kind of gives us a framework in terms of the things that we can achieve each month. I think most of us are familiar with the idea that we start these meetings out with public comment, the supervisor's report, so we stay aware of board issues and actions that impact North Fair Oaks, a county manager's report, so we understand county-wide issues and actions that affect our community, as well as council member report outs that involve information sharing and updates on our engagement with the community. Then we have items that we're required to work on as part of the charter of the community council. As I mentioned earlier, planning and building items come up pretty frequently. For example, we had a lot of parking exemptions last year. I believe we averaged about one every other month, as well as pending Board of Supervisors actions that require council recommendations, things like the fireworks ordinance, the restrictions on gun shops that we dealt with last year. And finally, I think in the first hour, prioritizing the things that come out of study sessions is very important. So we need to recognize that that's a key action item for us and reflect that kind of in the first hour of our typical monthly meetings. The second hour, we can talk about projects that are led by the county agencies in North Fair Oaks. It provides an opportunity for the council and the community to get some input on those things. Updates from the county departments to make sure the council is aware of and can provide input to county departments and the programs that support North Fair Oaks. And finally, updates and requests from community organizations. And a note that the items that are in italics are the things that we're going to try to get a sense of what we want to prioritize and discuss tonight. One thing I'd like to keep in mind in this, and I don't want to give anyone the impression that this is a rigid or a rigid structure that we have to stick to every month, because as we all know, in some months, we may have 2 or 3 planning and building actions. In fact, next week, I believe we have 3 on our regular meeting agenda. Some months we don't have any. We won't always have a project identified in a study session to discuss and recommend to the board, but we may want to hear from more than one county department. So while this agenda structure, I think, can be useful for our planning purposes, it's obviously not a firm template that we adhere to every month. It just gives us a little structure for planning. With that, I'd like to take some feedback and comment from the other council members before we kind of start into the formal part of our planning process. Does anyone have any input on this? Let's see. I'm looking for raised hands. Okay, Blair, please go ahead. Councilmember Whitney.
Are you asking for input on just the template or on the
No,
whole brainstorming process?
Actually, what I've kind of outlined in a process for this evening, I want to make sure I reflect any comments people have before we get started.
So I forget when I joined the council. It was like 2 or 3 years ago. I had a brainstorming session and a facilitator from the county, and we did Post-it notes and those big 3M sheets and whiteboards, and it was good. And I think we did another one, like an in-house brainstorming, like at the Fair Oaks Community Center. And you never know where the next great idea is going to come from. It could be someone on the council or a friend or whoever, but if we're passive and we don't get, nothing's going to change.
I'm sorry, Blair, you've frozen on my account. Has Blair frozen for other people?
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Okay.
I didn't hear the last part of what he said.
I didn't either. That's why I brought it up. Councilmember Rodriguez. Oops. Okay, Blair is back now.
Yeah.
Ever, you have your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I believe that what Blair was talking about was some of the sessions we had during the yearly retreat, but also it was not uncommon to have interactive sessions during the study sessions where, for example, we came up with the hot issues that were affecting North Fair Oaks. Let's say, for example, transportation, and the people who were more involved or more knowledgeable or inclined to participate in activities related to transportation, for that matter, then they would try to inform the rest of the group and suggest venues to either improve or bring more information to the council, that sort of thing. So I think that's what he might have been referring to.
Mm-hmm. No, and I agree with that. And to be honest with you, if in a perfect world, we'd all be in a room doing this on whiteboards and stuff, because I think it actually is an easier process than trying to do it virtually, but that's not really an alternative right now. So hopefully we can accomplish the same outcome that we would if we were actually together, and people will bring their expertise to identifying issues that we can work on next year. Any other hand?
And so for,
Yes.
But what you have, what you're sharing now on the screen is only for regular meetings, right?
That's right.
The agenda, the template.
Mm-hmm. And oh, please go ahead.
It looks fine. It looks, it seems well organized. And I think it allows for a good variety of the issues that tend to come up. My only suggestion would be to maybe add on the second hour, potentially, even if it is 5 or 10 minutes, to allow time for agenda item suggestions, not necessarily to take on those, but often, in my experience as a chairman, oftentimes there issues that come up for the community where, you know, it is necessary to start discussing or looking into some particular issue right now. Like, you know, take for example, you know, the builder that is, you know, creating animosity in the avenues in our Fair Oaks with you know, trees being cut off. That is something that is unexpected and that it deserves time, you know, when it comes up. And I think that is often good to have a little bit of space to allow for such occurrences.
Okay, very good. That's a terrific suggestion. Any other comments from council members? Okay, I was kind of using that as a preference for, as a preface to kick off our session. And with that, I'd like to kick the session off. Supervisor Warren Slocum, who represents District 4, including North Fair Oaks on the Board of Supervisors, has attended this evening and will offer some remarks. Supervisor, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's nice to be with everybody tonight, despite having to do this virtually. Let me just single out and embarrass, if I could, Suki right here in the beginning and his partner Sherry, because you saw tonight how gracious he is and how technically savvy he is and how he just volunteered to step in and solve our issues. So Suki, big thank you to you. Shout out to you. You do the same thing for the Board of Supervisors and other agencies and meetings that we have, and it's all very much appreciated.
Thank you, sir.
Also, Mr. Chair, if I could just reintroduce Maggie Cornejo to the group, who's here. I think I don't see her on the screen, but I guess she's here. And then the Chief of Staff for my office, who's been with me from the very beginning, day one, in fact, before day one, Marcy Dragan, and I think she's maybe here, I'm not sure.
I am.
There they are.
And so is Maggie. Here too.
Okay, very good. Wanted to thank them for all the work this past year, and especially just recognize them. I became the president of the board during the first year of the pandemic, and you know, we had special challenges and there was a lot to figure out, and they both did a Herculean job, and it's very much recognized and appreciated. So the way that I come to be here tonight is that the chairman and I were talking some time ago, and he suggested, or he asked me, I don't remember exactly the sequence, but he suggested that I come to a council meeting and share with everybody some of my thinking about the priorities for North Fair Oaks in 2022 and perhaps beyond. And I have to admit that was a great idea. And he gave me a little guidance through the days. And we've actually been on a number of calls together on different issues, trees and other things, but I just would appreciate his suggestion that I join you all tonight and the invitation. I do appreciate it. And Brooks, thank you for your leadership. Those comments you made on that the council is proactive as well as reactive were exactly some of the thoughts that I was having as I thought about this presentation. And so I've appreciated your perspective on that. So to get right to the point, I thought what I'd do, Brooks, and I'll take some guidance from you here. I'll just speak for a few minutes and present some options about priorities for the council to consider. And then I was going to excuse myself and let you all talk freely. Then Justin or one of my staff or the chair could fill me in as they normally do. But that was my idea, to take a few minutes and lay out some of the ideas that I've been thinking about. If that's okay, Mr. Chair, I'll proceed.
That is terrific, Supervisor. And if it's not too distracting, I'll be taking notes in the deck as you go along.
Not at all. Not at all. So a lot has happened in North Fair Oaks. Most recently, you might have read, for instance, that the affordable housing project that we all worked on 8 or 9 years ago, it looks like the gap funding for that development has come through. We'll know for sure on the 27th of January, but it looks very, very promising. And if that's it was preliminarily approved at the state level, but has to go to this bigger committee. And if that's approved, then the developer, Mercy Housing, can proceed with the actual execution of the plan to build the affordable housing there behind the clinic. So many other things from the plan in terms of each of its chapters. You'll remember that the plan is sort of divided into chapters: economic development, environment, and so forth and so on. And within each of those chapters, then there were goals and aspirations that were laid out. And actually, Maggie went through the plan for me recently and tried to pull out some of the goals and then the accomplishments that have been done during these past several years. And it's quite an extensive list. And once that catalog is ready, I'd like to share it with you all as sort of a report card on the county's activities toward the implementation of the North Fair Oaks Community Plan, which, as you know, was authored 10 years ago, approved by the board 10 years ago in November, actually. And I've been spending a lot of time with the plan recently, as I mentioned, Maggie has. And it occurred to me that one of the top priorities that I would suggest and offer to you all is that we consider a couple of things all surrounding the community plan. One, first, is to update the plan because it's 10 years old. And as Ever mentioned, we have new problems. TJ Homes is an example of something that's causing stress in the community. Planting trees and the preservation of trees is in the community plan, not the cutting of trees. In any case, I think that the bottom line is that the community plan needs to be updated. And I would suggest to you that last time, or when it was originally done, it took a great deal of time and energy and process. And I don't know what your thinking is, but maybe we can find a faster, more economical way to do that updating of the plan. So that's suggestion one for your consideration, is how the council could be instrumental in updating the plan. I can see links to the outreach that's in the plan, increasing civic engagement with the council as part of this, and I think potentially many other benefits. The second idea that came to mind, I'll wait for Brooks to finish his sentence here. The second idea that came to mind in terms of a priority would be for the council, through some process that would be defined, to go through the current plan as it exists today and have the benefit of that report card that I mentioned earlier, and then identify priorities from the plan as it exists today for calendar 2022 and perhaps even 2023. But I don't have a strong preference, but I do believe that updating the community plan is very important, and to try to engage new people in that conversation, as well as the regulars, I guess is how I'd say it. because basically for me, I spend most of my time thinking about or doing projects related to North Fair Oaks, whether it's fireworks or the alarming number of rapes that have occurred, and so forth and so on. So those things are all contained in one way or another, I think, within the plan. And I don't know if everybody's had the benefit of reviewing it recently, but perhaps that's a place to start, is to just reacquaint oneself with all the magnificent goals that I think are still very relevant today. One of the things we've been spending a lot of time on, Justin's been spending some time on, is the whole idea, and the Parks Department, is how to create more park space in North Fair Oaks on, well, preferably would be SFPUC lands, but that may not be possible. But how to actually do that. One of the goals in the plan is to increase the number of urban parks in North Fair Oaks. So that could be a specific project taken from the plan that the council would, do some work on. And there are just a plethora of goals and aspirations in the plan. And I compliment those that were involved in the original creation, because there was really a lot of thought and effort that went into it. Also, as a sidebar to this, and I don't think Justin or Emma, I'm spilling any news, but I'm also going to ask, find a way to fix responsibility within the county manager's office for progress on the plan. You know, I've personally have monitored progress on these various goals, but I think we need now to have a specific contact person at the county who every day is furthering this agenda, working with the council, identifying priorities, and then setting in motion programs or efforts aimed at those goals. So I'm going to try to get that accomplished here in the near term, maybe by the end of the first quarter. But I'll keep you posted on that, Mr. Chair. But it's just an attempt to fix the responsibility for who's waking up every day and worrying about these goals that have been defined for us in the community plan. There's a lot to do, and just in summary, I think it's important to leave the next supervisor of District 4 a clean, updated, current roadmap to the community plan's goals. I feel very strongly about that. It's one of the reasons I'm recommending it to you tonight. But I'll stop there. And I know that's a lot to chew on. It seems like there's 2 or 3 alternatives. You may have other ideas about priorities for me, which I'd appreciate hearing or getting an email or a text on. But in terms of my priorities for North Fair Oaks, it's pretty easy. It is the things that are contained in the current community plan. And that's everything from all those chapters. Now, obviously, we can't accomplish all those things in 1 year, but we can take a more organized and collaborative approach to it. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for all that time. I don't know if I ran over or we're okay, but I'll stop there.
You did just fine. At this point, I'd like to see if the individual council members have any questions for the supervisor. Go ahead and raise your hand if you do, and we'll identify you. You were talking about the plan and how impressive it was, Supervisor, and let me see if I can do this here. One of the things that I first did when I started gaining an interest in the council was to read the plan. And for those of you who aren't familiar with it, this isn't going to work very well, but it is a huge document if you print it out and study it. There's a lot of great detail here, a lot of worthwhile goals, and to the extent that we can measure our progress against those goals and implement some of those things, that's a worthwhile charter for the next couple of years. Councilmember Rodriguez, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, The actual plan is found online for any of the council members or, you know, the public for that matter. Is fully accessible online, or at least it was, you know, at some point in the past. There was the practice of getting each new council member a copy of it, an actual physical copy of it, so that they could have it and read it, you know, at their own convenience. But, you know, in lack of that, it should be available online. But I also wanted to thank Supervisor Slocum for his comments and suggestions. I appreciate you bringing up the community plan as needing a revision. That's very welcome, because I know that when we participated in drafting it, there wasn't an equity lens put through, and not to say that it currently, you know, the current form doesn't support or include equity, but, you know, to go back to it and look at it again with that equity lens, I think would be more beneficial to the whole community to do so. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, I think that's right, Mr. Chair. It's there could be a whole nother chapter, if you will, on that important topic. I think Ever's spot on. And I don't know, are there other thoughts about how to look at this?
Councilmember Lopez, Linda, you have your hand up. Please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Supervisor, for your comments. Yeah, it's that plan was adopted, what, almost 12 years ago. My goodness. But that process started way like 14 years ago. And a lot that is in the plan is still relevant today, amazingly. But there are areas that we didn't even speak to. And that is the combination of, say, for example, technology and the whole concept of the green, you know, the technology aspects that can be built into the community. And also the whole idea about the climate, air quality, water quality. So there's a lot that wasn't covered, but we can still build on those initial areas, initial ideas. And the whole thing about transportation, local transportation. So it's a good, I think, starting point, but that may be the first step, is to once I don't know how it's going to be, if it's going to be a committee or what, but that may be one step to look at, and that is to look at what we have and where are the gaps? Where are the gaps that are relevant and needed for today in 2022? That might be one way to approach it, but I'm sure people have different ideas on how to do it. So anyway, but thank you very much for your comments.
Well, Mr. Chair, if I could just make a comment, you know, doing that gap analysis might be a very good way to proceed rather than trying to redo the whole book. Identify where those gaps are, as Linda and Ever just mentioned, and then go about tackling those, just as adding on to what Linda suggested there.
I see Councilmember Whitney's hand up. Blair, go ahead.
Thank you, Supervisor Slocum. I like the idea of leaving a clean, updated plan for subsequent supervisors and subsequent councils One thing that came up was some brainstorming. I saw COVID relief money used to put up a Wi-Fi access grid around the neighborhoods where kids didn't have all the tech they needed. And I like to dream big. I mean, that's a possibility. What about a public Wi-Fi cloud for the whole North Fair Oaks as a ambitious plan? You know, just because it's a challenged community doesn't mean we can't have world-class technology available. And also on the green space, I like biking, and rails and trails can go together. It could be open space and a transportation corridor. Whether the rail is 10 years away or 20 years away, we can have the parks and the bike trails and stuff. So COVID was a downer, and it's still with us, but it opened up my eyes to some other possibilities that I didn't think about before.
Mr. Chair, if I could just comment a couple of
Please.
things. Number one, Blair has the best background of any of us because I think he's in front of the Fair Oaks Library, if I'm not mistaken, or the screenshot is of the Fair Oaks Library. Just a FYI for everybody on that technology question, we're actually working with Santa Clara County because their board asked the staff to prepare an analysis of how to basically go into the Wi-Fi business to offer reliable, fast, really cheap internet to their communities. And we reached out and asked if we could pick or join them in that analysis. And so our first efforts in that regard are to explore the legalities of the easiest way to think about it would be like there's an agency called Peninsula Clean Energy. Well, it might be to form a JPA like that and offer these network services. But it's just to say, Mr. Chair, that we are in fact exploring that with Santa Clara County. And if we could have a regional system, that might be of special interest. I'll stop there.
Any other questions from the council for the supervisor? Okay, Suki, do we have any public comment or questions on Supervisor Slocum's remarks?
Hello, I'm
Hi.
back.
Oh, hey, Deanna, thank you.
Hi. There were some tech issues. I apologize. During this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 4, key priorities presented by Warren Slocum, please raise your hand now. Emma, are there any hands raised?
No hands raised.
Okay, there seems to be no public comment at this time. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, well, thank you very much. And with that, thank you very much, Supervisor, for your presentation this evening. I understand some of the county staff will stay on, follow our discussion this evening, but your input has been helpful and has given us a lot to think about, starting with the community plan and revising, updating, and picking elements out of that is a terrific idea. So thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thank you all for the time and invitation. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
You too. Okay, next item we have on the agenda tonight is study session topics. Basically identifying topics to be discussed at our North Fair Oaks Community Council study sessions in 2022. And the idea being that these are issues requiring study by the council, perhaps areas we don't have much expertise in, areas that have come up as new issues that hopefully will lead to actions and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors at our regular meeting. And with that, I'd like to open it up to input from the council for their ideas of topics, things that we might want to address in the coming year. So please, Councilmember Lopez, Linda, I see your hand raised. Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yes. My suggestion is regarding planning and building policy and procedures for developments, housing development in North Fair Oaks. Right now, the department has a procedure called a major development pre-application process. And they use that from my understanding, we'll have to get more information. That's why I'm suggesting it for study session. They use it for major developments, multifamily developments, but there is no such procedure set up for minor subdivision, such as I believe major development is 10 units or more. Minor would be maybe 5 or less. That's something to study, but it seems that the last couple of developments that have come into North Fair Oaks, and this is just in the Selby Park neighborhood, have needed considerable critique, review, and community feedback. Yet there was no procedure set up to do that except for people contacting the planning department and asking for meetings with the developer, with the owners and such. There's got to be an easier way to do this. So my suggestion is that the study session topic would be to expand the definition of major development pre-application procedure under planning and building department. Thank you.
Okay, pardon the delay there while I capture Linda's thoughts. Councilmember Rodriguez, I see your hand up. Ever, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Going back to the revision of the community plan, I'm not sure if the study sessions would be the appropriate venue to maybe take, some of the time and utilizing that to go through it. We could do it maybe, I don't know, chapter by chapter, depending on, what is needed for council members to have during a study session. I concur with Linda that housing continues to be a hot issue that we will need to revisit, a few times throughout the year, along with density and all the issues that come up, since we have heard that counties and cities have, the mandate to increase housing availability. So it's an issue that is just coming, in force. And then a couple of issues that continue would be increasing civic participation throughout the community, to let people know that this is their council and they're welcome to join, monthly if they want or need, that there's public comment, open to all. And finally, I think it would be a good practice. I always try to do it when I was the chairman. The practice of reminding all council members, at some point, doesn't have to be at the beginning of the year, but reminding us all of the responsibilities of being a council member entails. I think it's always good to have that reminder.
Oh, very good, Ever. Thank you. Councilmember Lopez, I see your hand up again, Linda. Do you have an additional comment?
Yes, I would like the study session to speak to the youth vote, that we may want to consider expanding youth participation. I do not think that one vote on the council is enough. So that's another item that I would like to propose. And that's one thing. And the second thing was Supervisor Slocum talked about creating a roadmap. I think it's very appropriate for the council to bring up in a study session their thoughts on just the makeup of, I mean, just to identify who the players are going to be. I mean, is it going to include, Samtrans, Office of Sustainability? I mean, just who should the players be that will create the plan? I think it's absolutely appropriate for the council to look at that and come up with their own ideas about that. Thank
Sir,
you.
Are you talking about the community plan update?
Yes, I am. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Councilmember Whitney, Blair, I see your hand up.
There, I'm unmuted. I like everything that's been said so far. I think the community plan, I found it online and I bookmarked it, and I'm gonna start digging through it. I think we're gonna need a subcommittee with county staff and us, but a gap assessment, and then a brainstorming session. That's like a year-long goal that has to kind of work concurrent and outside of the council if we're going to update and ratify a next 10-year plan. The study sessions are probably things that are imminent and going on currently in our community, and I think we might want to consider a monster home moratorium ordinance. All the fighting over trees and such, there's like hyper gentrification going on in the choicest corners of North Fair Oaks, where the developers seen the opportunity to purchase and flip homes and to build out the maximum that doesn't require a vote. They're not asking for parking exceptions. They're not showing up on anyone's agenda because by right, they're building absolutely every square inch that they can get. And this happened in Redwood City and San Carlos, and some communities actually said we need a moratorium on these monster homes. I think we need to devote a session to just talking about let's maybe take a 6-month pause on things that are, incredibly exceeding the normal character of the neighborhood, because we're in the process of identifying where we're going to absorb all this new housing and how we're going to accommodate so many diverse people. And the monster homes are just pure market rate serving whoever's got the money to buy them, and they're not offering community amenities like an ADU that someone who's working poor could benefit from, a school teacher or whatever. And so that's a suggestion. Also, as far as getting feedback, there's a box at the North Fair Oaks Library for the Redwood City ferry idea. and it's just a cardboard box and it's got slips and they want people to fill out surveys. I think we should put a copy of our community plan, the bound edition, and ask people questions, put it on the Survey Monkey too, and then push it out on Nextdoor or whatever platforms and ask people's opinion and report on the results and invite people to come and speak there in public forum. Community engagement is important because if we're operating and the only people in the room are the ones directly impacted, like the person asking for the waiver and a neighbor, you know, we have a very limited perspective. That's it. Thank you.
Emma, I see your hand up with a question.
Hi, through the chair. I just wanted to let you know that Deanna has already sent you all a copy of the community plan through your emails for your records.
Well, thank you very much for that. Ever, I see your hand up again. Do you have a further comment?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to also emphasize that study sessions would be great to start the discussion that Supervisor Slocum mentioned, which was leaving the next supervisor with a clear roadmap to the community's goals. And I'd like to make the distinction between that roadmap and the community plan, because it can be confusing. We're talking about two separate things, two different things. The community plan is something that is already created, and that only needs to be updated. The roadmap is something entirely new that council members need to sit down and start talking about, you know, what it's just like creating a wish list of what we want or what the community needs. That's better said.
Okay, thank you, Ever.
Thank you.
Are there other comments from council members? You know, with regard to the housing issue, especially the goals that I believe Blair and Ever both referred to that get mandated by the state, our next study session is actually in March, and Will Gibson is going to present at that time. And he's going to discuss the results of the housing inventory. In other words, where the county sees the opportunity to build housing to meet the regional housing needs assessment goal that we've been mandated by the state. So there'll be some action on that coming up. We'll get some input on that at a study session in March. Kind of tied into the issue of housing is parking. And I would say half the email that I get from constituents has to do with parking, particularly in and around the Middlefield corridor. And I almost think that we need to go a step beyond that and kind of marry that with the issue of housing, particularly senior housing, affordable housing, which can be built with reduced parking capacity. I don't want to dive too deep into the weeds on this, but there's a project being considered at 3009 Middlefield, I believe. It's going to be 85 units of low-income senior housing. And the plan right now, which meets state requirements according to several laws, that project can be built with 38 or 39 parking spaces. I forget which now, which just to me sounds woefully inadequate and is only going to exacerbate the issue of parking in that area. So one of the things I've considered is that we might want to consider for a study session is the idea of taking a look at parking in general, particularly in the Middlefield corridor, perhaps considering a permit system similar to what Redwood City is using up in Friendly Acres or something like that, because it's bad now, and I'm just concerned it's going to get worse. And we're spending a lot of money upgrading Middlefield Road, making it more attractive to businesses, making it more attractive to their customers, and you know, that's just going to exacerbate a problem as well as this increase in multi-unit housing. So if I had to put one item on here that I'd like to look at in a study session, it would be that whole issue of kind of parking and housing merged together. Councilmember Whitney, Blair, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Mobile home parks, can we circle back? I know the county did a great job with one, but we got like 3 others. Can we, it's worth talking about because it's a very important part of the ecosystem as far as a housing choice that's affordable. And county did a great job with that one, but there's 2 or 3 more. I don't want to lose them as the developer sees quick cash to sell out to a developer without replacing them, or let's preserve that anyway.
Okay. Any other thoughts for study session topics that come to mind? Councilmember Rodriguez, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, right along the parking issues that you were talking about. I think revisiting some of the county's attempts to minimize, the large trucks that often park in residential areas, and that take sometimes 2 or 3 spaces from residents. I think it may be worth revisiting those and reviving them if they have died, or finding out what's the status of those, because I think the parking issue will still be here, and the large trucks, they're still coming here, and sometimes they don't even belong to residents of North Fair Oaks. Sometimes they belong to folks that they just happen to work around the area and they find easy parking for their trucks, and they just leave them here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've made note of that, and also, ask the question, is that an enforcement issue, or is that something that an ordinance is required to fix? Do we have something on the books now that prevents something like that?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, there, I'm not sure if it was a manager's office, but a couple of years ago, if I remember correctly, there was an attempt to create policy that would not allow trucks that were larger than however many feet tall, I think. And so that may work. But again, it may be time to revisit all of those and just getting a refresher about what the attempt was. Thank you.
Councilmember Ruiz, Jennifer, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Good evening. So I would like to hear more about like root issues, daycare or youth programs, community space, or even more youth programs, more information for youth, how to apply for college, stuff, and I know a lot of after-school programs is needed in the community. Like, people work sometimes 2 jobs, and children are just at home. More education programs for kids. And on last year's study session, when we planned the 2021 year, no, I think it was like 2 years ago when we had the facilitator, I remember we also spoke about like youth at risk, more information about youth at risk, and what can we help the community, because that's a big problem in the community.
Okay, that's great input. Thank you very much. Linda, Councilmember Lopez, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer, for that, because that was my thinking in proposing that we expand youth representation They have to have a more voice in what is happening as far as what I call the local government through the council. But anyway, thank you for that. On the list that ever kind of started, we have to also include parking permits.
Mhm.
So there are a lot of projects that kind of got started and never really finished. And also I have a little note to reinstate code enforcement. We might need to go back to having more updates. I don't know what's going on with that, but it's just a little note. So code enforcement and parking permits on the list regarding the big trucks that are parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Emma, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
I just wanted to add, Brooks, on Evers thing about the big, larger trucks. That includes weight, height and weight, and there is a current ordinance on that. So it's not just about height, but you might want to add weight in there
Mhm.
on that first bullet.
Oh, got it. Okay, I'll go back and do that. Okay,
There's a weight capacity. We did outreach on that.
okay. Okay, I see Jennifer and Linda both still have their hand up. Do you have additional comments?
Yes, I think it seems that people are so, I think a lot of people are overwhelmed with how things are right now as far as the virus and stay home and no school and everything. I think a lot of these issues, like about the big trucks and parking, I don't think anything really happens unless someone complains. And it's unfortunate, but I don't know the county end of it. If the county gets a lot of complaints, I don't know if you, Brooks, are getting complaints, but it seems that people really need to start complaining more. And that kind of sets off more action.
Mhm.
But anyway, that's just
I-
my thought. Thank you.
Between you and me, I wouldn't have suggested a study session to discuss a permit system or something like that if I wasn't getting a lot of complaints about this. And just driving through the streets up there, I mean, trying to find a place to park within a block or two of Middlefield at virtually any time of day is difficult. So that was the
Yeah.
reason I brought that up as a key priority, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, it's just my point is people are complaining about a lot of other stuff regarding health and education and
Mhm.
childcare. And so, they see a truck. I mean, unless you complain about it, nothing's really going to happen.
Mhm. Okay, are there any other comments from council members?
Ever, can we talk about fun stuff too, like finding a community festival or fair or cleanup day after COVID?
That's on the books right now. We're doing a community fair, community festivals coming back in August of this year. Planning for that is actually underway. Councilmember Ruiz, Jennifer, I see your hand up.
Hi. So also we used to have workshops in the community, like pre-COVID time, mental health, immigration workshops. I think maybe if they do like a pre-recorded or just information Zoom workshops through the community, there's like a text system where we get notices of when there's something going on, and use that text system where people can log in and just, get some information about resources or anything that's available. And also like workshops for small business owners, like how to, inform them how to register their businesses, or, just information and put it out there for the community. Now that we can't attend like in-person workshops, I think online workshops would be good.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay, I think we've got a lot of good ideas here. What I'd like to do is close this one out but first ask if we have any public comment on items that would be discussed at our 2-hour study session meetings. We have 6 of those a month, and as members of the public can see, these are designed to address larger scale issues that don't usually come up or that can't be covered in the confines of a regular meeting. Do we have any public comment?
Members of the public, if you wish to speak on agenda item number 5, topics for study sessions 22, please raise your hand now. Okay, there are no hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much, Diana. The next topic that I had for discussion is a list of ongoing projects. So we're kind of flipping over into that second hour, if you will, of our monthly meetings. And it's coming up with a list of projects that are being led by the county agencies that impact North Fair Oaks. In other words, ongoing projects that we need updates on, that we would like to provide input to the county on. I mean, an obvious example of that is Middlefield Road. That'll be something we'll want to discuss during the year. But I just wanted to start by asking for council input on a list of projects that you'd be interested in. And I see Jennifer's hand up first. Councilmember Ruiz, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to lower it.
Okay, then in that case, Councilmember Lopez. Linda?
Oh, yeah, definitely Mercy Housing
Mm-hmm.
project,
Okay.
which will include the child care center and community activity building and the whole thing. And while we're there in that location, I think it's good to get updates from the clinic because they're going to be right next door. So anyway, the clinic and Mercy Housing. Thank you.
Okay. Other ideas from council members on projects that are ongoing this year. In fact, one that I'll add that you mentioned, Blair, is the the North Fair Oaks Community Festival that's going to happen in August of this year. So we'll want to get that on there as well. Councilmember Whitney, Blair, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
The cleanup day is actually kind of fun. If that's happening, yeah, that would be cool if it could happen this year.
Okay. Any other updates that we'd like to have from the county agencies that impact North Fair Oaks? Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever, go ahead.
Yeah, I think also Redwood City Together, the organization is planning a yearly health fair. Last year, it took place at the Red Morton in Redwood City, and this time I think it's going to take place at the Plaza in downtown Redwood City, which is is nice because it's closer to North Fair Oaks and more residents from North Fair Oaks may be able to go there. But they're open for participation from North Fair Oaks, even though Redwood City Together is is an organization from Redwood City proper, but they have always been very welcoming, and they're always inviting the community to participate in that health fair, which actually got started here in North Fair Oaks when Rafael Avendaño was the director for the Siena Youth Center, and the health fair got started here. And then as Rafael went on to work for Redwood City, he has continued that. So now it happens in Redwood City, but we have been asking if the fair can get closer, as close to North Fair Oaks as possible, so that people don't have to drive. So it appears that this year is going to be closer, happening at the plaza in downtown Redwood City.
Do you have a date for that, or at least a month when that's supposed to happen ever?
I don't remember. I'll get that information and I'll send you an email.
Okay. Any other projects that are being led by county agencies that we should be getting updates on? Councilmember Whitney. Blair, go ahead.
Dumbarton Rail Corridor,
Mm-hmm.
and the bicycle plans around whatever. I know they did a bunch of planning, and I'm seeing stuff on Middlefield and Fifth, but all sorts of transportation questions that the county's involved in at every level, from bicycle corridors and then the rail thing. We still have funding going into trickle, even though Facebook, I think, pulled out. So I want to hear, what's going on with that, and probably check in with Samtrans, like, services that, all transportation, lots of transportation issues, questions.
Mm-hmm. Transportation updates, yeah. But the rail corridor project in particular, okay. Councilmember Rodriguez, Ever.
Yeah, I was going to ask you actually if there may be some stuff from the NRT meetings that you think are coming up, because I know there's usually good information
Mm-hmm.
there about happening.
Yeah, and I probably need to do a better job of summarizing those. I attend those. In fact, Juan Carlos attended one today too. I think between the two of us, we can bring more of those issues into our own individual report outs on a monthly basis. Some of those are covered by Justin as part of his county manager report, but some of the other ones we can pick up on as well. So that's a great idea.
Yeah, because I think that is an excellent source for getting information on, projects that may potentially be happening in North Oaks.
Mm-hmm. Councilmember Lopez, I see your hand up, Linda. Go ahead.
Yeah, is code enforcement still on that agenda? And is it still on the agenda for the group? The NRT agenda?
It does come up. Is that a regular presentation on there, Justin? I don't remember, to be honest with you.
Yeah, we always have, we try to always have code enforcement as a regular participant in NRT. And so yeah, that can be a part of it. And I also think, I appreciate Brooks and Juan Carlos attending those meetings. And I think to the extent that there's anything in particular that council members are seeing, and maybe you can, raise through Brooks and Juan Carlos or whomever the representative is on NRT, that can also help be not only a place where information gets disseminated out, but also get your input on issues that you all are seeing.
Yeah, it could. Yeah, the council used to get the reports, more detailed information. So it would be good that the council continue to get more detailed information, where are the hot spots, where are the landowners that are not cooperating, what, basically a picture, a more detailed picture of the state of code enforcement in North Fair Oaks. Okay, thank you.
I see Blair's hand up. Do you have an additional project that you'd like to get updates on, Blair? Or is your hand up from your prior question? Okay, we're not hearing from Blair right now. The only other thing I had from, and this might be a OCA thing, I'm not sure, Emma, is just kind of business outreach in general. Report outs on kind of whatever liaison activity we have going on with businesses. I guess I'm thinking in terms of North Fair Oaks, both the impact of the improvement project and just general, business outreach, the issues that businesses are facing in the community would be something I'd be interested in hearing about from a program perspective, to the extent that we have, dedicated resources that are doing that outreach, and what businesses are telling those resources with regard to what they need. Is that something that we could get?
So I'm happy to answer that one. This is an area of kind of growing analysis, and certainly during the pandemic, there's been different ways that the county is engaged with the business community more generally, but also specifically along Middlefield Road. So I wouldn't say that we have dedicated resources right now to collect that information you just identified, Brooks, but I think if there was space on an agenda where that was a regular item, we'd be happy to share what we're hearing, and also would be happy to hear what you all are hearing from your contacts in the business community in North Fair Oaks as well, and kind of have it more as an information back and forth. We do not have, and we have, OCA does interface with the business community, but we don't, for example, we are looking into something like economic development director or manager, but that is not a resource we have at this time from North Fair Oaks.
No, understand. Okay, thank you. Okay, I think we've covered that. Let's kind of move on to the next one. And we kind of bled into this a little bit, but I'm thinking the updates that we want to receive on a regular basis from county departments that serve North Fair Oaks. Obviously, dozens of different county departments impact our community. What I'm looking for here is kind of the ones that we really want to hear from on a frequent basis, those that have programs that directly target North Fair Oaks. Think of the need being something we should hear about perhaps on a quarterly basis. So I'll kick it off and just suggest that the equity that our new equity officer could present to us on a relatively frequent basis, to describe kind of the work that she's doing, both to establish and implement equity programs in the county, particularly since equity is such an issue for the community. Are there other departments that are of real concern to council members that they'd like to get relatively frequent updates to? Please go ahead and raise your hands to suggest.
Obviously, crime, like sheriff's offices, rapes, assaults, all that stuff.
Any others, Blair, that come to mind? Okay, Councilmember Rodriguez, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I would say that if Public Works, at least a quarterly visit is usually good, because there are many streets in North Fair Oaks that are in disrepair, and I know they have a schedule. So giving the council an update on either, the street repair or other things that may be happening, not only, on the Middlefield Road corridor, but, in other areas that may need infrastructure or repairs, etc. Also, I think that I think the Office of Sustainability is sometimes, they have projects that may be relevant to North Fair Oaks, as well as San Mateo County Health. Linda was, mentioning the clinic, but I guess a larger perspective would be, from San Mateo County Health and getting us an update, at least now during the pandemic, as we come out of the worst Omicron infection. I think it might be good to have them, occasionally come and give us some information about how North Fair Oaks is coming out of the pandemic. Also, I heard from the Office of Emergency Management maybe coordinating the emergency services that serve North Fair Oaks, and that includes the sheriff's office, which Blair already mentioned, but also the fire departments. Turns out North Fair Oaks is served by two different fire departments. The Menlo Park Fire District covers half of North Fair Oaks, and the Redwood City Fire District, or Redwood City Fire, covers the other half. So I think getting an update, at least a quarterly update on issues. Like I know recently there has been several days of bad air, quality air, and also during the summer, there's the number of extremely hot days is increasing. So those are just some things to mention, but there may be other things that are relevant as well.
Okay, and thank you. Councilmember Whitney, Blair, I see your hand up. An additional item?
I accidentally left it up, but
Okay.
human services and the positive stuff, the interventions that are helping people. So the mental health services by the county, the human services folks, the St. Anthony's, the dining room, just get an update on this social safety net and how are we doing taking care of people that are hungry or unhoused and sick but without insurance and things like that.
Let me put that on the next slide, the last one that we have this evening, under kind of community organizations. I'll keep St. Anthony's in mind and add that as we get there. Justin, I see your hand up. Please go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just about to lower it, actually. I was just gonna, maybe if it would be helpful for your conversations. So some of these departments you're talking about don't necessarily handle the things that you've identified. So in some ways, if you're wanting to identify, certain kinds of regular reports, you could maybe do it thematically or by topic, and then we can work on the right representative. For example, Office of Emergency Management, wouldn't be the one to talk about air quality. And they also don't hold the contracts with Menlo Park Fire Protection District or Redwood City Fire District. So that's just a technicality here. And so for your own discussion purposes, you may want to frame it in terms of more about topics or themes rather than particular departments. But we're happy to work with whatever those themes are to figure out the right people to present to you all.
Okay. Any other council members have county departments in mind that they'd like to get regular updates from? Actually, the last one I had was the library, given that it's now under the auspices of the county library system and not Redwood City. I think it would be a good idea to hear somewhat frequently how that transition's going and how they're serving the community. So I'm going to go ahead and add that. Any other input from council members on this?
Do we ever interact with the city of Redwood City, like cross-pollinate, where they report to us and we report to them on things that we're working on together? Because I'd be curious. I think the county would know if there's like a joint effort, but I'm curious about that stuff.
None that I know of. Justin, do you know of any? I mean, I can't even think of who would be doing something like that.
So there are plenty of partnerships between the city and the county, and
Mhm.
in terms of who regularly reports, I mean, we staff makes presentations to the council as the Redwood City Council, for example. You know, you all received a few months ago a presentation about the smart street elements of the Middlefield Road project. County staff gave a similar presentation to the Redwood City Council as well. So if there are specific things that Redwood City is working on, and there are areas of overlap, I'm trying to think, you know, there'd be no like, you know, public works project, but certainly they have things that, you know, the community center is a great example, right? Of something that is run by the city that really is right there in unincorporated areas. And so if you all would like, you know, city staff to make a presentation on something specific, yeah, we can ask the city.
Councilmember Lopez, Linda, go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, well, Justin already brought that up. I was going to mention the Fair Oaks Community Center also, because it's almost like a dual jurisdiction type thing. So yeah, it's right there. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, there was one area that we didn't really speak to, education. I mean, that's also something important, and that we also share that with the city of Redwood City under the city, Redwood City School District, and the charters and all of that. So that's a whole nother area. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others before we, Blair, have you raised your hand again?
Yeah, I just remembered we had a census like a year or two ago. It's maybe a study session, but it'd be nice to just crunch those numbers and see what the community looks like in 2020 versus 2010. How are we changing? Younger, older, whatever.
That would be interesting. Okay, I see no further hands. I'm going to suggest that we move on to the last area that I wanted to touch on this evening, and we may have touched on some of these before. In fact, I know we've touched on one, and that's updates from community-based organizations, not part of the county, not part of Redwood City, but groups and organizations that support our community directly. And in fact, I'll put Blair's idea around here for St. Anthony's and people like that. See, I see Blair's got his hand up. Councilmember Whitney, go right ahead.
I left it up by accident, but the faith-based community includes Street Life Ministries, St. Anthony's. There's the Catholic Workers Center, and there's a bunch of overlap between like Redwood City and North Fair Oaks, but we're all serving the same people, those in need.
Councilmember Rodriguez, go ahead.
Wanted to add the Day Labor Center of the Multicultural Institute. And they were giving us quarterly updates. I'm not sure if they're going to continue reporting to our council, but even if they're not mandated to report to our council, I think it would be nice to have them occasionally come to our council and, you know, letting us all know how things are going with the workers that they support, as they're mostly from these areas of North Fair Oaks and Redwood City.
Oh, absolutely. That's a great idea. And I recall they've presented probably an average of once a year, if not a little more frequently than that, but that's a great suggestion. Councilmember Lopez, Linda?
Yes, I think we need to include all of what I call the safety net community-based organizations. And so that would be like Multicultural Institute, Ever already mentioned that. There's El Concilio, there's some of the employment, legal, programs that exist, and also the Mental Health Association that runs Waverly House. And I think Blair mentioned some of the other ones under the county. I'm sorry, Blair, I forgot which ones you mentioned, but I thought I heard something about, oh, no, it was the faith community. That's right. Yeah, just you know, we have safety net organizations rebuilding together. We have, you know, Habitat for Humanity. There's a bunch of them, and they're there and struggling to get their income, either on an annual basis or a 2-year basis. So I think it'd be good to highlight what they're doing. Thank you.
Councilmember Rodriguez, ever? Go ahead.
Yeah, I also wanted to mention it's the Redwood City Together organization, because they have a few programs that overlap and do work in North Fair Oaks. Recently, they were handling, you know, some of the vaccination activities, but I know that, you know, they also have a group of youth working constantly on projects. They're also, for example, supporting the OYE conference, which will take place, I believe, in March, and it targets the youth from North Fair Oaks. They do a wonderful job empowering the youth and supporting them. And not only from North Fair Oaks, but also from Redwood City and other areas, East Palo Alto, you know, everybody's welcome. But they certainly focus that work in Redwood City and North Fair Oaks. Mm-hmm. And also, at some point, our community organization, the North Fair Oaks Community Alliance, would like to bring updates on whatever work that we do for the community. So would be happy to do that.
Okay, thank you. Mentioned the youth, and I'd like to add Siena Youth Center as a organization that could give us updates. Blair, go ahead, please.
Housing, like hip housing, matches up roommates and seniors that have whatever. It'd be good to get a presentation from hip housing. Mm-hmm. Also, the St. Francis Center that owns the Siena Youth Center went into the housing business, and they raised money and they bought an apartment building and they built another one. And they're a player not only in the social services, but in the housing sector too. And they're definitely not for profit.
Sorry, then the name of that again, Blair?
It's called the St. Francis Center. And okay. Sister Christina, if she's willing to come, she's the point person that did all this fundraising. But they're a big player in alleviating needs in this area.
Councilmember Lopez. Linda, I see your hand up.
Yes, and don't forget the Boys and Girls Club. Mm-hmm. Even though they're located on city property, they still, I mean, the kids come over from North Fair Oaks. Okay. So that's when you talk about Siena Youth Center. There's also the Boys and Girls Club. So okay. Yeah, there's yeah. I mean, we can get there's lists around that with all these mm-hmm. all these programs.
Yeah. I was thinking Beautification Association, Canopy, people that are engaged in tree planting and beautification of the community as well. Mm-hmm. Councilmember Whitney, I see your hand up again. And now it's gone. Okay. Any other community organizations people would like to get regular updates from? Okay. Do we have members of the public that would like to offer suggestions for either projects that are ongoing in the community they'd like to hear updates on, county departments that serve North Fair Oaks that could conceivably provide updates, or North Fair Oaks organizations that serve, community organizations that serve North Fair Oaks, I should say. Do we have any public input on that?
At this time, members of the public, if you wish to comment on agenda item number 6, topics for regular meetings 2022, please raise your hand now. I do not see any hands raised. Back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Diana. With that, that concludes our agenda for this evening. I'd like to thank everybody for the thoughtful input they provided this evening. It's not easy to sit down and kind of take a holistic look at what we'd like to accomplish during the year, but I think we've got a really good start here that'll drive our planning in the current year. I believe Supervisor Slocum has left, but I'd like to thank him for attending and presenting his remarks and kind of setting the tone for the conversation, as well as members of the public who attended, members of the press. I believe we had press members here this evening. And as always, thanks to our county staff, Justin, Suki, Emma, Tim, and Maggie, and Deanna for their support. We could not do what we do without all of you. Our next meeting is our regular session that's going to be held next Thursday, 7 to 9 p.m. We actually have 3 planning and building actions on the agenda. So, we try to do these, we try to identify things that we'd like to bring up in our meetings, and planning and building comes along and keeps us even busier than we thought we were going to be. But we do have 3 actions from planning and building requiring council votes next week. And we're also going to hear from Ron Gonzalez, who's president and CEO of the Silicon Valley Hispanic Foundation. He's going to be sharing the projects that the foundation is implementing that's going to impact North Fair Oaks in the coming years. So with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn the meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, I don't believe we need a roll call for this. Just all those in favor can say aye.
Aye.
Yes.
All right. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, everyone.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night, Brooks.
Good night.
Good night, everybody. Thank you, Liana.
Thank you for all your effort today. We are indeed back up on email. I'm not sure if I told you that, but it's working. So thanks so much for your help with that.
I think we're all going to get a degree in
Technology.
Yeah, I'm going to be a developer by the time
Oh,
I
there you
leave
go.
this place.
Thanks, Brooks. We'll see you later. Have a good
Bye-bye
day.
now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.